Jordan Peele is back at it again to scare us and make us think in the genre-bending horror set to drop on July 22nd called Nope. Peele has heralded a new era of horror that journalists have coined as the social thriller. Let's dig into what this enigmatic film could be about. First, let's peruse what I call the Peele heuristic. Okay, so Get Out and Us, his first two features, have several things in common. The leads are black, the heroes make it out alive, houses are not homes, they are sites for sinister events to take place. The villains are not necessarily uniquely evil, but rather the outcome of historic social engineering. There are broader themes related to social inequality, exploitation, and erasure. The heroes must face their fears in order to survive. And our heroes survive with the aid of people who truly love and care about them. Alright, so given that this is what we know, these features construct an archetypal Jordan Peele film. Let's use that lens to think about Nope. Here is the very general plot of Nope that I was able to ascertain from watching different trailers, different breakdowns, and interviews. Okay, so OJ, played by Daniel Kaluuya, and Emerald, played by Kiki Palmer, their father is killed in a mysterious event on the ranch that they own, called the Haywood Ranch, and they believe it is some kind of alien event. Emerald wants them to film the aliens in order to get rich and famous because it seems that the ranch is insolvent, and they hook up with the two supporting characters, Angel, played by Brandon Perea, and Antlers Holst, played by Michael Wincott, because they have some kind of expertise in filming aliens. We have no idea what the Haywood's relationship is to Steven Yeun's character, Ricky, but he has appeared to carve out some cottage industry as an alien event rodeo host. That's as eloquent as I can be. And he has some interesting sartorial choices. We also have no idea if this film actually is about aliens, if it's just a twist, if they are going to successfully abduct anybody. But we do know that if you don't look up at them, you don't get taken, supposedly. And the title, just a reference to the way that Black people have a propensity to consider the danger of a given situation, size it up, and especially if there's any paranormal shit involved, immediately say nope and walk away.
Black people have some very pretty simple rules, and there's just certain things that are just gonna make us go nope, done, out, I'm gone. But y'all can handle this, but I'm nope. I'm gonna be nope. I'm gonna be noping over there.
Peele says that he wants to invite those people into the theater to have a different kind of theatrical experience. Let's go through a trailer breakdown. I watched 3 different trailers, the official trailer, the final trailer, and the international trailer, to piece together clues from this assemblage of texts. So the first images establish the setting. There's a family ranch, and there's lore. So their great-great-great-grandfather was the star of the first ever movie clip to be created. And he went on to become a famous Hollywood horse trainer. And he beget our main characters, the Haywoods. Their father, Otis Haywood, the faithful son, OJ, and the absent daughter, Emerald. Otis asks, "Where's your sister? She was supposed to be here." And OJ just shakes his head. So my immediate thought was, what if Emerald is the prodigal daughter? This is a biblical reference and a filmic motif that's depicted in numerous TV shows and blockbusters. So then I did some research. The parable of the prodigal son appears in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. In the story, a father has 2 sons. The younger son asks for his portion of inheritance from his father, who grants his son's request. This son, however, is prodigal, which means wasteful and extravagant, and he squanders his fortune and eventually becomes destitute. So as a consequence, he has to return home empty-handed and beg his father to accept him back. But To his son's surprise, he isn't scorned by his father. He's welcomed back with a celebration and a party. And the older son is angered by this, and he refuses to participate in the festivities. So then the father tells the older son, "You are ever with me, and all that I have is yours. But thy younger brother was lost, and now he is found." So then I immediately looked at the other parables. And the next parable is called the parable of the lost coin. And this one appears in Luke chapter 15, verses 8 through 10. And in it, a woman searches for a lost coin, finds it, and rejoices. The final parable in this trilogy is about redemption. And this parable is called the parable of the lost sheep. It appears in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. And it's about a shepherd who leaves his flock of 99 sheep in order to find one that's lost. So Jesus says, "Which of you men, if you had 100 sheep and lost one of them, wouldn't leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that was lost until he found it? When he has found it, he carries it on his shoulders, rejoicing. When he comes home, he calls together his friends, his family, and his neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I tell you that even so there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who need no repentance." Okay, hello, scoop. Okay, so we can see that there is a potential connection here about a lost child who comes back, a father who leaves his flock, and the importance of redemption, mercy, and forgiveness in order to heal relationships. So from the trailer, we can gather that there is a rift between Emerald and OJ. There's this physical separation. They're usually not facing one another until later on in the trailer. And the death of a parent can riven any family, or it can bring the family together. And we have no idea where their mother is. And yet, this could give us a clue about the father's orientation to his children. Perhaps, for example, the father isn't actually dead. Perhaps his death is a ploy to bring his children together. Or more probably, there's a resentment between the two siblings that's going to be healed because they will seek answers, right? They're either going to try to figure out what caused the death of their father by the coin, or perhaps, and they're going to be seeking the money that their family has lost, because it seems like the ranch itself is pretty modest or not doing so well. And that eventual success creates this pathway to healing. And so this, if it's true, would check off two important characteristics of the Peele heuristic. First, the heroes have to face their fears. And of course, facing your fear after the death of a parent is a significant one. Facing fears about what caused their death, what you could have done, and what you should do afterwards, and what you're going to do next, right? The heroes only survive because of true love, people who care about them. So I think that these two things are probably going to be present in the film. I think this film is about what we see and how we see it. Looking Up adorns most of the promotional materials, and Emerald repeatedly tells herself, "Don't look, don't look, don't look," so she won't get taken. In interviews, Peele has said that this is a central theme of the film, the spectacle.
I think the DNA of the movie has this big question about the addiction to spectacle, human addiction to spectacle, and what happens when money becomes involved in that.
We see that the character Ricky, who's the host of this alien rodeo show, is selling merch and completely devoted to the craft of selling the experience of an alien invasion, or merely selling the spectacle itself. Whether he's actually a grifter or a true believer isn't clear to us. But either way, his identity is totally intertwined with this notion of the gaze, the need to watch, the spectacle, to see and be seen. We even see a woman who appears to be half human, half horse, wearing memorabilia of this blonde woman, and she's transfixed with the show. And what does the relationship between this woman somewhat desperately looking up at the sky with this blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman smiling from her sweatshirt say about how entertainment and escapism have become more real than real life. Some clever sleuths have discerned that this film is set in the early aughts, which was by no means pre-internet, but it was certainly pre-smartphone and pre-almost inescapable addiction to observing the quote-unquote real life of strangers we will probably never meet. Are the celebrities and idols we worship the aliens, or just the deeply unequal relationship that exists between us? Maybe that's the thing that is alien. There's one quick clip of this dude wearing glasses, and in the reflection we can see a trained circus chimp performing. And this is also about entertainment and watching the performance of other creatures for our own satisfaction, which of course makes me think of scholarship. So Bell Hooks wrote in Eating the Other, Desire and Resistance, mass media has transformed the landscape of the dominant mainstream viewer onto people of color and other marginalized groups, their cultures, their bodies, from the realm of invisibility into consumption. And marginalized groups like queer people, immigrants, etc., while they're ostensibly lauded for their so-called exoticism, they're often consumed and commodified by the dominant gaze. While indeed, there can be an exchange, right, between the subject and the viewer, it's typically a one-sided affair that can be seductive to the marginalized group because of its promise of reward or recognizance. And it can feel alluring to, people who have this post-racial and post-colonial fantasy that through contact, we actually rid ourselves of the deeply held social inequalities that still rule our lives. So to quote Hooks, she writes in reference to Eating the Other, quote, "And even though the conviction is that the familiar world will remain intact, even as one ventures outside it, the hope is that they will re-enter the world no longer the same. The desire to make contact with those bodies deemed other, with no apparent will to dominate, assuages the guilt of the past, even takes the form of a defiant gesture where one denies accountability and historical connection. Most importantly, it establishes a contemporary narrative where the suffering imposed by structures of domination on those designated other is deflected by an emphasis on seduction and longing, where the desire is not to make the other over in one's image, but to become the other, whereas mournful imperialist nostalgia constitutes the betrayed and the abandoned world of the other as an accumulation of lack and loss. Contemporary longing for the quote-unquote primitive is expressed by projection onto the other of a sense of plenty, bounty, a field of dreams. So in this way, onlookers project their desires onto the other, and the other is just an object through which one can, at best, experience some kind of personal transcendence and lose nothing. Certainly not one's social status, their sense of humanity, or their ability to behave altruistically. Certainly not the fact that they benefit from this unequal relationship. So if we use the lens of Hooks, the symbolism behind the names Peele chose for his characters emerges. OJ is an infamous name in the United States and attached to a once beloved football player and actor and entertainer who was accused of and acquitted of murdering his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, who was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman from an affluent family. So he was acquitted of killing her in criminal court. He later lost to her family in civil court, but he never paid. At his peak, O.J. Simpson was absolutely larger than life. He was a fixture on television in every all-American, ordinary, white, cis, heterosexual Christian household. His person eventually transcended humanity. He became a brand, the Jews. And his preternatural athletic talents gave him access to fame and fortune that enabled him to evade arrest for battering his wife on numerous occasions prior to her death, with officers ignoring her pleas for help that her husband was going to kill her. Perhaps as famous as his acquittal was OJ's insistence that he had transcended race and that he was post-racial because he had reaped the benefits that many Black entertainers, old and new, discover. With a certain level of notoriety, racism fades into Black. And because of that, he wasn't Black. He was just OJ. In an interview, Simpson said in reference to a woman's use a racial slur against Black people, he said, "Don't you understand? She knew I wasn't Black. She saw me as OJ." During OJ's trial, his excoriation was absolute. While many in the Black community defended him, the average, ordinary, white families burned their jerseys and their posters, proclaiming that he should receive the death penalty for his alleged actions. The good faith Simpson had earned through working hard to dissociate himself from the bad images of Black people was ripped away, only leaving the gaze upon the other, this eternal status. So, okay, fine. Thank you for allowing me to nerd out a little bit there, but what does this have to do with Nope? Okay, so in the trailer, here's what I'm thinking. Daniel Kaluuya's character, OJ, appears bereft and melancholy. He's the faithful son. He runs to his father. He sits beside him in the hospital bed, alone, covered in blood. What we do know is that he works hard to carry on the legacy of the Haywood Ranch. Perhaps he believes that he should stay the course and work as a Hollywood horse trainer, and that the rewards will outweigh the losses. And this could be a commentary on the exploitation that can take place between the, quote, below-the-line staffers in Hollywood, whose labor is so often overlooked and underpaid. And yet, OJ might be willing to do anything it takes to maintain a weather-beaten legacy in spite of the cost. Emerald, his charismatic and perhaps bombastic sister, is likely a foil to his plans, whose name indicates this kind of blithe jubilation and star power that will predispose her to take more risks in terms of pursuing the aliens and pursuing the money shot. So this film might have a lot to say about our obsession with the gaze, our obsession with the object of the gaze, and whether it says more about the thing we're looking at or more about us. And I must say, if that's true, it would meet the characteristics of the Peele heuristic. So that's it. That's my thoughts about Nope. I think this is going to be a pretty thrilling film, probably entertaining, heartwarming, and of course, it's going to be scary. I cannot wait to add another film that I love from Jordan Peele to the peele-iverse, because I loved both of his films for different reasons. All right, thanks for listening.